was sitting here preparing for today's call, I was just trying to figure out like, okay, how do we tie in, you know, um, uh, all the things that are going on today, right? Like there's so many things, right? Uh, it's the middle of winter and yet it's like, it feels like spring for me, right? It's also business planning season. It's the beginning of the year. It's resolution season. There's transitions and handoffs. And yet also it's Martin Luther King Day. Uh, and it keeps making me go back to the conversation uh, that Martin Luther King had with the country on the steps in DC in his "I Have a Dream" speech. And what's interesting is when I think and when I look back at like people that have done incredible things, and if you ask them, what were you chasing? Like what was behind all of it? And I feel, and again, this is totally unscientific. This is just me talking, that they're not driven by an outcome. They're driven by purpose. And then I ran across a post from there's a coach that I follow, Dustin Runyon, and he has some great content. He posts a ton of stuff on there as well. And one of the posts that he says is he asks, like, what are you chasing? And are you chasing an accolade? Are you chasing a designation? Are you chasing an award? Are you chasing applause? What are you chasing? Are you chasing? And then he says, some of you even say you're chasing freedom. And I say, that's a valid and valiant like reason to be doing what you're doing. You're chasing freedom. The challenge is, though, when do you know you have it? And what is your definition of freedom? And if you think your definition of freedom is lack of challenge or lack of obstacles or lack of um, difficult conversations or lack of whatever, like, then you're going to be kind of disappointed because, it's super cliche, but freedom isn't free. The freedom that you're looking for is rife with obstacles, challenges, etc. And he says, what are you chasing? He says, are you chasing freedom or are you chasing purpose? And I'm like, that's a different kind of conversation. And as I was sitting there thinking, what was Martin Luther King chasing? Was he chasing freedom or was he really chasing his purpose? And what was his purpose? His purpose was to change the world, right? And um, that's the part that's really interesting is when you're purpose driven, what has to happen is you fall in love with the process. And in order to make a difference, you have to be the difference. And that's only in the work. And as we attempt to get away from the work, and this happens a lot. I see this often in my world. Here's the progression. Agents will get into the business, they'll get a couple deals, and they go, cool, I like this. I want this to be more fun or easier. I'm going to start a team. And then they start a team and they go, cool, I like this. Uh, we're doing really good as a team. We should probably open our own brokerage. Or, hey, this one is doing well. We should open three. And it never actually gets easier. In fact, it gets harder every single step of the way. So there's no bypass to that. Um, So I bring these questions up today, or just this conversation today, to ask, like, okay, when's the last time you really checked in on purpose? When's the last time you really checked in on, do your goals match, or are your goals this year in alignment with a purpose or applause? Are your goals right now connected to making a difference or a check? Making like, And I understand when you're coming, if you're coming from nothing, something is better than nothing. But then at the end of the day, once the something start piling up, why? Why do you keep doing what you're doing? Right? What's the driving factor? What's the push? What's the mission? Um, so I jump into this conversation with that, and I'd love to just kind of open the floor to have the to I don't know, to help me out. Let's share in the conversation. Yeah, Jacoby.
So I think purpose is great. You're talking to one of the most passionate people. I think you and I are passion, right? Dr. Martin Luther King, passion. But when I think about the successful people, I think passion and purpose and the deep rooted why is great. But I just think it doesn't carry you. I think that our high performance habits, our habits and high performance habits carry us. And then I think that that's the the cold plunge, the workout. You're the walking testament of those habits. You had some really great ones for a lot of years before that. And then I also see, I knew you when you were really great at those things, and now I know you when you're really greater. I don't know if that makes sense, but you changed your habits, and I think you probably got even clearer on some of those things that are pulling you. But I think it's a combo. I think it's a combo of that.
I I I I hear you 100%, and probably didn't do a good enough job articulating or landing the point of what I mentioned is that um, once you identify your purpose, the next step is to fall in love with the process, and
Yes.
it's the process. Once you identify the process, and you can actually let go of the outcome because the outcome happens anyway.
Yeah.
Once you just become someone that doesn't miss, once you become someone that just does what they're supposed to do, like I work with a lot of agents and teams where they're so unit driven and they're so closing driven, and all the conversations are like, all right, what do we got to do to get another deal? And I said, no, what do you got to do to never miss a day of lead generation?
Hmm.
Once you stop missing lead generation and you stop just putting out everyone else's fires, once you control your calendar, once you become someone who's disciplined and consistent, then you just stack after that.
Yeah. That reminded me of I'm listening to a book, and he said the high achievers, whenever they are so like they kind of fall out of love with what they're doing,
Yeah,
and it's reconnecting. Like we don't reconnect with the process, we reconnect with the purpose.
correct.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love
And
that
then and then
process.
you and then
Process
you
follows
just
the purpose.
yeah, and then you find a process that fuels that, right?
Yeah.
And then just
Yeah.
fall in love with the process in
Yeah.
whatever way you need to. And sometimes that's the for me that's the inorganic part, but it's also the part that's probably the most important.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking about you, you taught bold, you sold at a high level, you were even an actor before that. Like you did some really high achieving things. Where do you think you were connected to your purpose back then when you were a high achiever?
No, in different ways, right? So like, but it was always a few levels beneath the result. Like I was never results driven. There was always a little bit more for me. Um, when I share the part of my story that had the most impact on me, it was always proving someone wrong, which
Mm,
is dangerous because it has a lot of kindling, it has a lot of fire, but it's grounded in negativity. And so while it pushed me forward, it was also kind of toxic. And so even with theater, it was driven by proving somebody wrong that told me I couldn't do it. And I went far into that world as I could. And in real estate, same thing. That the conversation I had to have in the yard with my father-in-law
mm,
was a completely pivotal moment for me. So for me, having that chip or having somebody to prove wrong was powerful for me. That was my purpose, but it was grounded in toxicity. It wasn't healthy. So I had to change it. I had to, and the only way I changed it is I had to tuck in my ego and have a conversation with my father-in-law and thank him.
Mm. So if you're going to tell a high achiever, if you're going to talk, I guess I shouldn't say tell, if you're going to ask the right questions, what questions would you ask that high achiever to help them get reconnected to the purpose? What are the questions we can ask ourselves to get back to the purpose?
Oh, those are great questions. That's a great. I don't know. I'd have to think on that. I don't know if I can. I mean, the questions that I had to ask myself was, is this helpful or hurtful? Is this grounded in
Yeah.
abundance or scarcity? Who wins? And like if what you're doing has to have a loser, it might not be the right thing.
So this is what I would say. 20 years from now, you're surrounded by people you love. And you can say, and you ask them, how do you describe me? How do you want to be described? And
Mm.
I think in 20 years, who we want to be will say what we are fueled by. Like if I'm going to ask you, who do you want to be in 20 years? You're going to go, I want my daughters to be like, well, in 20 years, you'd probably be probably granddad, right?
Don't age me too quick.
Yeah, but let's say like I want my daughters to remember me for this. I want you and Christy to have this. And I think when we think of the purpose for me is kind of thinking end in mind. Like, what do I want to be known for? What is some of this? And then that to me kind of goes back to now, okay, now how do I achieve that today?
Mm.
Feel like that can change so
Yeah.
much year to year too. Like even what you think you want now, 20 years from now is different than what you thought you wanted 20 years ago or 5 years ago for 20 years from now too. So you have to be really
Yeah.
reflective on that, I think, and open to expanding your horizons as you grow. But I also think there's a whole piece of it that is based on like intuition. And I'm not talking about your feelings in the moment, but your intuition, like being extremely self aware and tapped into what is really like, first of all, your purpose has to really be your true purpose. It can't be something that someone else set for you or something that someone pushed on you. It needs to be something that you just feel in your core is your purpose. That when you think about, like, when you define your purpose, your mission statement, whatever you want to call for your life, you got to feel that. Like, it has to feel like home. And then I think that when you're veering off your purpose, you just have to continue to ask yourself why. Like if you're doing something that doesn't feel right, you have to sit in that and ask yourself why and continue to say, why am I doing this? Why do I feel this way? And really find yourself in a space that you can tap into that intuition and make sure that you're on the right path and doing the right things to keep moving you in the direction that you want to go or you're supposed to go.
I know from
That's
experience,
good.
from experience, because I've been in the business for 27 years, that sometimes it's better to do 5 year or 10 year goals because things change a lot in 20 years. Just a whole lot of things. And so your goals do evolve or change as your family changes or anything like that. But I mean, it's good to have that 20-year goal, but make sure that it's also flexible. Don't Some people make it so rigid that they get frustrated, and it makes it's really hard on them because they make it such a hard goal that they are afraid to make it a little bit flexible. So you got to work a little bit with that too. But the 5 year goals and the 10 year goals, work towards those too.
Hey, Matt, the other thing I think about when I think about purpose, when I think about you, and it reminds me of John Maxwell, is passion follows purpose. I think that's a
Um,
I think
so
that's a Maxwell quote.
it's interesting. Yes, and I think purpose then also breeds passion.
Yes,
And
that's what
that's
I mean.
where like going after and falling in love with the process creates a new level of passion. And that for me it, it's there's like there's like when I think about it contextually or visually, there's almost two parts to it. Like, so you've got to be there, like there's passion, there's a passion or a desire for something greater, more better that forces you to then find the process that's going to get you there. But through the process, though, falling in love with the process creates a new passion, or at least for me it has, and it's through the consistency, the repetition, the pattern, and then just the commitment and almost a submission to the process that begins to breed a new passion of, for me it's been whether it's conscious or unconscious, whether it's a defense mechanism or not, but falling in love with the process became almost like secondary. And then now all of a sudden, not doing the thing is extremely uncomfortable, where doing the thing at the beginning was the uncomfortable piece. So whatever that thing is, whatever that process was. Um, and just so yeah, going back to James Clear and Atomic Habits, it's stacking habits, process, creating systems where you can't not succeed, right? Like, it's creating habits and systems daily that make it impossible not to win. Like, if I've got a problem with what I put in my mouth, one of the systems, like for food, for like if I'm having a challenge with my fitness and my health, I'm just not going to have certain things in my house. Like, I'm going to just remove or throw away or pour out the things that are causing me to not win in that area. So one of the processes or systems is just even removing choice.
Mhm.
So in my world, I have to, like, I'm in a process, like, for me to win in my world, I have to eliminate all the distractions. So I don't have to choose. The only choice I have is to just execute on the commitment. Uh, so that's it. It's about elimination for me sometimes.
And the people that you have to eliminate can be the hardest eliminations, right? Or the
Uh,
is the timing right?
well, it's less about elimination, but it's more about access.
Mhm.
Like, uh, obviously the phrase is, you can't change the people around you, and yet you can change the people around you, right? If there's people that aren't serving you towards your purpose, you can't change them, but you can change them. They don't get to have access. There's certain people that don't get my energy.
And it's interesting how as you evolve and change, your relationships can evolve and change too. And people that you thought you would give access to forever might be people that you have to limit some of your access to be able to really move
Yeah,
forward.
family's especially difficult just because, like, we can't necessarily cut off people forever. However, we can limit access, or like we can limit their influence.
Yeah. When even, I've even got friends who I just thought were like the best friends that would be my friends forever. And, things fizzle and things change. You grow as a person. And if people aren't growing along with you, sometimes, unfortunately, you drift apart. And that's been one of the hardest things for me. I'm very like passionate, loving person. I just love everybody. And so I think that for me, it's really hard to let go of people. Like I feel like I'm doing a disservice to them, or I don't know how to explain it really, other than, that's been the hardest thing for me, is letting go of people that you can really care about people and you can really love people. But you can also limit yourself to them.
Well, Mel Robbins in her new book, and her new topic speaks to this often. And she says, if you want to see how powerful your relationship is with people, stop calling them and see when they call back.
Mhm.
Let them. So if you're the one that's keeping these relationships alive, often, if once you just stop reaching out to people, and if they stop reaching out to you, that's okay, let them. But then the other side of the concept she talks about is then let me. So like understand that you also have power too. So, but just release it. I don't know. There's so much more to that. Like I've been kind of slowly diving into that her content right now with that, and I'm kind of fascinated with it. And I also noticed like it's that's also difficult. Like for me, I used to attach so much of my identity with these relationships that I had or didn't have, and what I realized I was the only one making any effort in them.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, so like as I'm sitting here as the time is ticking on, I'm going, okay, so what's the purpose of today's call? What are we even talking about? We're just talking. How the purpose is this. It's almost I wanted to just give you like a warning, if you will, if your goals and the satisfaction you're going to derive from this year has anything to do with a number or a dollar amount or a unit, danger, right? What is the purpose beneath that? Like really what's behind it? And get really clear on what like what are you really who are you choosing to become this year, not what are you like attempting to accomplish. It's who do you choose to become. Are you looking to become someone of consistency, someone of massive discipline? Are you looking to become a difference maker, a change maker in the lives of others? Like what is like get really clear and start tapping into the purpose of why we do what we do, and I promise you there's going to be a lot more fulfillment on the other side of it. It may not be attached to a specific number, and you may in fact blow way past that number. Or if you don't necessarily hit that number, and yet you get to become and transform into that version of you that you've always been waiting for, then that's a glorious win.
So how do you
Uh,
balance?
mm,
And I know you're saying like if there's numbers, dollars attached to it, that's a danger zone. Obviously, we encourage people to set goals, right, for their year and
yeah.
drive a business plan off of that. So how do you balance having a goal like that, right? You do need numbers, something to aim towards, but not letting it distract you from your actual purpose, or not letting the number be the only thing.
I mean, when you say distract you from your actual purpose, you got to ask yourself then what's the purpose? But we have bills, we have obligations, and we have goals and dreams, legacies, freedom. All that thing's part of it, right? The question is, okay, like when I hit this goal, what does it allow me to do, or who do I have to become in order to get it? Like we know what to do, we know how to do it. The question that we never ask ourselves is, who do we have to become in order for that goal to be not a stretch? It's the becoming. That's the part. And it's getting out of our own way, cutting out our bullshit excuses, stop like justifying whatever, and just fall and just actually like do you guys have any idea what your lives would look like if you actually committed and did the things you said you would do? And just that and nothing more. But like literally legit just showed up for yourself the way you said you would on January 1 throughout the year, nothing extra, nothing supernatural, but just stop bullshitting yourself that you're giving a full effort. Because we're all running around doing 30%, myself included. Like just stringing in the minimum of what you said you would do. That's it. Nothing superhuman. That's the uncommon. That's the separator. Is just simply those who consistently show up for themselves the way they said they would, and not hiding behind any bullshit excuses. Life is going to come at you. Sickness is going to come at you. Snow will come at you. Your pets will die. Someone in your family will have a tragedy. You will get a phone call that will jack your world up so hard that you never saw coming. So what? And just keep your promises to yourself. That's your mindset Monday. There's your motivational upbeat send off. So, hey, um that's it, guys. Like, that's it. Fall in love with the process. What if you actually showed up for yourself the way you promised yourself you would? That's transformative. All right. Have a great week,
Great,
y'all.
great call, Matt. Appreciate it, buddy.
See you guys. Be well.